So 92% of women tell other women about things they love, yet 90% of women feel misunderstood by advertisers. And I really contend because it's a lot of men deciding how to advertise to women, and there's just a disconnect. So we hope to bridge that gap because we are an all-female team.
Today, we're kicking off the third in a 4-part series on creatives. How do creatives live a generous life? And we've heard from an author, we've heard from a Hollywood director, and today you're going to hear from Tiffany Long, who created a marketing agency, and she's aware of. So I'm so glad to have her in the house, and I know you're going to love our conversation. So thanks for being here. Welcome to the Generous Girl podcast. I am joined in the studio today by Tiffany Long. She is the founder of Troops and Allies, and it's really a powerhouse, a female-driven marketing team, and she wants to reach women, and she has been doing this for a number of years, and she's been blazing trails in film, marketing, partnering with industry leaders like Lionsgate, Amazon, and Sony Pictures. So she comes to us as the third in this series of creatives who are using their gifts to bless God's kingdom and to really just spread his love through the media of film and marketing. And she lives in Nashville with proud mom and wife of 3 boys. And it's just such a treat to have you here in the studio. So welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you, Kim. It's so lovely to be here. Thank you for even being interested in talking to me about this. It's really great to be on.
It's wonderful to have you here. And my original connection with you was through Cindy Bond. And Cindy Bond, producer of I Can Only Imagine, a prior podcast, just spoke so highly of you and your agency. And I thought this is perfect to spotlight a marketing agency that's run by women and wants to reach women. So it's great if we could just start with you telling your story. First of all, how did you get interested in marketing when you were in college, or what made you interested in that field?
Well, I think marketing kind of chose me, I would say. I went to school at MTSU here in Middle Tennessee State University. I wanted to be the next Katie Couric. I was a broadcast journalism major. I wanted to go to New York. I wanted to be on the news, be in the news, be reporting the news. And as I went down that path in college, I found I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. And that I ended up wanting opportunities where I was sort of behind the camera and really basically just I wanted to be able to tell people what to do. And so I ended up just finding myself in situations where I was working more as a producer than an on-air talent or anything like that. And so my first job out of college was a scheduling director at a post-production facility on Music Row here in Nashville. And I just took it because I was like, I got to get in the business, and I got to get in the business that I want to be in, regardless of the job. Like I tell people that all the time. I give that advice to young women that I talk to that are about to graduate from college, whether it's an intern or somebody that just asked for advice. And like I said, go to the industry you want to work in and take whatever job they have for you, because that's where you build your network. So rather than, I could go work in a different industry and it will be a better job, but then you're going to build your network in an industry that isn't your ultimate goal. So even if it means, doing something that isn't what you even went to college for, but if it's in the industry you want to work in, go do it and build your network in the places that you want to be. And so anyway, I started in that realm, and then just eventually I worked in the music business. I had a client that was starting a record label. His name's Steve Taylor. He started a record label called Squint Entertainment, and he started it to be the home of Sixpence None the Richer. I don't know if you all remember, if your listeners remember the song Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer. Huge song, worldwide. And he said, I need someone to come do marketing for my label. And I was like, well, I don't really know how to do marketing, but you are so fun. And the music business sounds fun. And that's really, that's entertainment, wow, which is where I want to be. So I took it, and it was great. My husband was his recording engineer on all the things he was producing. And it was such a fun time. It was in the mid to late 90s. And we got to travel. We got to go, I went, really fun places all over the world. And I just learned as I went and just kept finding I actually really like marketing. It's really fun. It's when you're a marketer, especially in the space I work in, you get to be a bridge builder between art and faith and commerce. And all three of those things need to exist. I mean, you can have art, but if you don't have an audience, then nobody sees it. And so the marketer gets to be that bridge of, you get to be creative, but you also get to be very business minded, and you kind of get to do both, which I always thought was super fun.
That is super fun. And I love how sometimes we feel like we just, quote, fall into things, but obviously God's in charge with those relationships.
Totally.
And you look back and you kind of think it felt random, whatever it was you were doing at that time, but it all ends up connecting together. And I love that advice for young gals, like build the network in the space, in that profession that you think you see yourself in, because it's really wise, really true. And it is all who you know in the relational capital.
It is. And I used to think that was just the music and entertainment and film business, but it's really any business is about who you know and who you build your network with. And so it is really like, get in the area you want to be in and do whatever it takes to start building relationships. I mean, how many times have we heard the story of, the head of the studio that started in the mailroom? It's really about doing good work and making relationships and being a person that's willing to do whatever they ask, whatever's asked of you, to be around what it is you love and you want to do.
Well, that's great. And so tell us then, fast forward to how you got the idea to start your own agency.
Yeah. So I had worked for this record label and then a couple labels actually. And then I started to have my kids. I have 3 boys that are now 15, 18, and 24. And my husband was on the road with bands, and he was front of house engineer for Amy Grant for years and Stephen Curtis Chapman before that. So he was gone quite a bit. And as I had my kids, I thought, okay, one of us has got to have a stable schedule.
Someone needs to be home.
Somebody has to be home, right? And somebody has to feed these kids. Somebody has to make sure they get bathed and go to bed. And so I had a ton of help from my mom, who lives here too. But it's still, I knew, like, I've got to be the stable kind of the structure right now, because Russ couldn't be in his job. And so I left the record label and I just started doing part-time work in marketing and for an agency, because I wanted flexibility in my schedule. And as my kids got a little bit older, I have my son who's 24, and then we have a son that's adopted from Vietnam, the son that's 18. He had open heart surgery. He needed a lot of attention and care, and really, so I stayed at home for several years completely when he was first adopted, to really focus on that and focus on him. Then once he started going to preschool, I went kind of toe dipped back in. But I ended up working at an agency called Propeller, which is not around anymore, but it was a great marketing agency, and they did a lot of marketing for films. And our films that we worked on were mostly faith-based films, and majority of the audience were women. And if men were coming, they were coming because the wives had brought them to see these movies, or said, this is what I want to go see for date night, or this is what I want our family to go see this weekend. And there really was nobody in our space marketing specifically to women. And once again, I had reached a point in my life where now my kids were middle school and needed a little more attention than they did in elementary school. They needed to know I was present. I was in the home. I was here. So I left Propeller to just, again, go work freelance from my home and be more present at home. And it just grew. It just continued to grow. And I really believe, because, again, you look back and you know that God was in this decision to leave. And I didn't leave Propeller dreaming of having an agency and dreaming of having an all-women team and dreaming of building something that was specifically focused on women. I just knew I need more flexibility in my schedule. I need to be more present at home. I can do this work from home, and I can have flexibility. And God continued to bless that and grow it. And it's been 10 years now. We have 5 other women that work on our team. And then we engage a lot of contractors depending on the film campaigns and what we need. But it's been such a fun ride. It has not always been easy, but it's overall, I would say it's been really fun.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I do just want to highlight, I feel like for women, the choice of staying at home, working full-time, working part-time, it's never static. It might look one way at one time, and you're morphing as your kids are growing and changing, and you're realizing, like you said, it might have looked one way in elementary years, and then junior high requires a different need, skills from the parents, and then you enter the aging grandparents and parents of the parents coming, and it's the women who are often flexing and figuring out where are we, going to have the elderly parents live, and it's just a lot. I think no matter how someone dices it, when you add kids to with marriage and career, you look back and then I thought, because I'm an empty nester now, so our kids are 25 to 32. And I thought, it's going to slow down. And in some ways, like, the kids are fully busy with their lives and their careers, but now I'm on the elderly parent side of things, and that takes time, and I'm the trustee. And so it's just, I think the expectations, if someone had told me in my 20s, just expect it's going to be a lot all the time, but it's good.
To your point exactly, that it's going to morph and it's going to change, and it's very rare. I think it happens, but I think it's pretty rare that you make a decision as a young woman. Okay, I'm going to be this. I'm going to be a full-time mom, or I'm going to be a stay-at-home, or I'm going to work part-time and I'm going to work full-time. And that is your trajectory forever. Like, you find yourself in different seasons. And I've definitely had seasons where I couldn't do much of anything outside of just take care of my kids and be present. And then there have been seasons where I've been able to, and there's been seasons where my husband has had shifts and changes in his career. Absolutely. Like, I couldn't have focused and grown Troops and Allies in the last 5 years, but 6 years, especially, if he hadn't had a change in his job situation where he said, look, I can be more present. I can he does all the laundry, cooks 3 meals a week. Yes. He, does as much of the running around for sports activities and marching band activities as I do, because he just knows that's the shift that's had to take place. And God's allowed that and opened new opportunities for him that have changed his work situation, that have allowed that to be the case. So it's like God's hand has been in every step of it. And, it's funny. I had a meeting, I had an appointment with my therapist a couple weeks ago, and I was talking about entering a new season of work, what work looks like, and how I was just super worried I was not going to be able to figure it out. Like, I just don't know if I can figure this puzzle out. And she said, okay, let's stop and think about that for a minute. What makes you think you can't figure it out? Like, you've done this now for 10 years and you have figured out, and God has opened the doors that need to be opened and closed the doors that need to be closed for the last 10 years. So why all of a sudden are you worried that's not going to happen here? And I had to really stop and think about that. Like, why am I? And ultimately, I think it's because I was trying to control the outcome. And I felt like, but I can't control what's going to happen if we do this. And that was just a good reminder of, it's not in my hands, and it never has been.
Right. Well, I really appreciate your authenticity and sharing that you talked with your therapist about that. And that's a great example of navigating the blend of family and career, and then getting the outside help to, like, why am I feeling this way? Because sometimes it's really hard to figure out why. And I love that you kind of just unpack the layers to figure out, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is why there's fear. This is why I'm not sure if I can take that next step. So that's, we talk about on this podcast, taking the next step and not being paralyzed. And so there are so many resources out there for all of us to, whether it's a girlfriend or it's a pastor or a therapist or whoever, but to figure out, why am I stuck? And then what is God wanting me to do to take that next step? Because he doesn't want us to be stuck forever, but sometimes we do. We get in that moment of looking forward. Well, that's really beautiful. And I love what you said just about how now your husband's doing the laundry. Like when our youngest was 3, my husband started doing a lot of global travel, and same thing. We realized one of us needs to be here. And so I was happy to do it. At one point I was in 10 carpools, and I thought, I do not want to leave someone else's child somewhere or leave one of our kids somewhere. But yeah, it takes everything. Yeah. And then I was the one doing a lot of the cooking at that time, and my husband would do the grilling. But then fast forward during the pandemic, the kids are almost, out of the house and launched, and he gets into cooking. And now he's the one who is doing the shopping and doing the cooking. And it's just fun. It's fun to be flexible. And I think in today's the 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, I think there's also a really good, healthy way of dividing the labor, that they just do what needs to be done. And it's great. I love that.
Yeah, I think so too. I see that for sure.
Well, you mentioned, and I mentioned, the help with our husbands, but you had also said in the pre-conversation what an impact your mom had on you as a single mom. And of course, we've got many listeners who are single moms, and my hat goes off to each one of you, because I can't imagine a harder job of being a mom and financially providing all the things. So talk a little bit about how you learned when you were young to be able to overcome adversity by watching that example of your mom.
Yeah. Well, my mom is amazing. She's very strong. I come from a long line of strong women, strong women with strong opinions, but also really strong faith. And so I had a fairly unstable childhood until I was 12. I have a younger brother who's 5 years younger than me. My parents got divorced when I was 12. And really, even though that was a very traumatic event, we moved from Cincinnati to Nashville because we had to move in with my grandmother. My mom had no money. My dad was not able to provide and reliable in that way. And so we moved to Nashville, moved in with my grandmother. I think back now as a grown adult with kids, that had to have been so hard for my mom to say, I can't do this. I need to come home.
Right.
She grew up in Nashville. But the beautiful thing that God provided in that was we moved back into the home she grew up in. We moved into her childhood home. My grandmother was a widow, so she had the room and the space, and she was also a career woman. She taught piano 40 hours a week and had a career that didn't seem like a career at the time to me. Sure. I just thought she's a piano teacher. I look back now and realize she had to manage invoicing and scheduling and client load and all of these things. And so we moved to Nashville, but what the beautiful thing God provided in a very stressful time was this built-in network of friends and community that my mom had from her childhood. So she had a church we started going to immediately that was the church she grew up in. And she knew, all these people knew her and had known her well for a long time and totally embraced us. God provided a family that was also going through a divorce, and that woman became my mom's best friend. They walked through that season together, and her daughter became one of my best friends. Mm-hmm. And we're actually all getting together this Sunday. But I saw my mom, she kept her faith through all of it. We still went to church through all of it. I think that was such a foundational element of normalcy and stability for her. And it became that for us too, when we came to Nashville, I knew we were always going to go to church on Wednesday night. We went to Southern Baptist Church. So we had Wednesday night supper with, and then you went to boys and girls broke out into their small groups. And we were always there Sunday morning and Sunday night. And it just became something you could count on in a season of great instability. You could count on this. Mm-hmm. And so that her unwavering faith and commitment to we're going to keep doing the things that I know I can control and make part of a structure and stabilization. And she worked hard. She worked full time my entire childhood because she had to pay all the bills. And she went back to school back to college when I was in college and got her college degree that she had not finished the first time around. And then she came to everything. She came to our sporting events. She didn't miss anything. She somehow found this ability to keep moving and keep going and keep showing up. And so that was just a huge lesson in, they say like children model, they do what they see modeled.
Right.
And that was what was modeled to me and to my brother. And I'm so grateful for it. And this is kind of a fun story I'll share, because even though my dad really left our lives when I was 12 and I didn't have a relationship with him again after, but when I was in high school, I set my mom up with the baseball coach from my high school. And and they got married. They dated for 4 years and got married, and they were married for 37 years. And he passed away a year ago this month. This will be the 1 year anniversary. But he was such an incredible man. And even just seeing how God worked through that situation. And I had broken my ankle my freshman year of high school, couldn't take PE class. He was a PE teacher. So I sat and talked to him for 6 weeks. We just talked and we got to know each other. And he was so cute. He'd been this professional baseball player, and he was so cute and so nice and so handsome. And I could tell just such a good guy. And so the next year, my sophomore year, he came into a basketball game with a date. And when she went to the bathroom, I walked up to him and said, "Is that your date?" And he said, "Maybe." And I said, "You need to meet my mom." And I coordinated a meeting for them about a week later. And the next day he came up to me in the cafeteria and said, "If I wanted to get in touch with your mom, how would I do it?" And I wrote down our home phone number. I gave it to him.
So cute.
But, and he was a godly man who loved the Lord and was the stability that, my mom had never really had in a relationship. So seeing those two really just set a great example.
What a redemptive story. Thank you for sharing that. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
We never know, the times where it's so challenging. No, it looks so bleak and God's like, "Trust me, I've got this. It's going to take a little while.
Yeah.
But have faith." Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I want to just spend a little bit more time on your troops and allies and how do you do what you do? Like, how do you go after reaching women with these faith-forward films?
Well, we talk about this a lot. We have several stats on our website that talk about this too. 92% of women tell other women about things they love. We know this, right? Because if you read a book you love, if you find like one of your questions is book and bargain and Bible verse, we tell other women, we tell them, I'm sure we're all in a million group text threads about different things. And, you share this info. That's what we do. We're communicators and we do that. So 92% of women tell other women about things they love, yet 90% of women feel misunderstood by advertisers. And I really contend because it's a lot of men deciding how to advertise to women. And there's just a disconnect. So we hope to bridge that gap because we are an all-female team and we definitely have we're listening and watching and reading the same things our community is. And we have what I feel like is a pulse on what women care about right now, what they're concerned about, what they love, what they're watching, what they're listening to. And it's really a fun job because that's like, there's a person on my team, Mary Collins and Sarah Kate, who you've met in all of this. And their job is to find strong partnerships for our clients and find strong influencers. And they do that by what are these people, what do they care about? Like, what do these potential ministry partners or national brands or regional conferences and events, what is their mission? What is on their heart? What is the thing they care most about? And what do we have that aligns with that? So we spend a lot of time trying to match kind of message to mission of other people that we hope to be ambassadors for our clients. There was a stat I was looking up earlier because I always forget the number, but it's really impressive. By 2028, women will own 75% of the discretionary spend in America, making them the world's greatest influencers.
That's right.
So They control 43 trillion of global consumer spending. Women do. And so it's just especially in the entertainment space and faith, family, and inspiration, they are the decision makers, entertainment decision makers for their households. The men are happy to go along in most cases. Sure, honey, if that's what you want to go see, if that's what family movie night is, if that's what movie you want to see on date night. And so connecting with them is really, I think, the most powerful tool we have.
And we talk about on this podcast, the great wealth transfer. There's never going to be, and never has been in the past, a greater time in history when women control so much of the wealth. And this transfer is happening from the boomers to millennials. And the women are often the philanthropists in the family too. So they're choosing the movie to go see, but they're also choosing, where are we going to give to which organization? And so I just love that your team is all female and you're focused on this space and trying to get the word out there and really resonate with your audience. So I know you've been a trailblazer. What has been the hardest part of the job in doing that, in that space for you?
I think it's a very heavily male led space, and trying to be in the room and at the table helping make decisions about even, what content is being created and why and what. I had a situation I share with people. We had a potential client that asked us to put together a list of they had a primarily female audience, and they wanted a list of, if they were to cover kind of an infotainment show about podcasts, books, and movies, and what that content should be. And so we spent a lot of time and put together a really strong list of what we thought their audience would want to read about and know about and hear about. And it was my female-led team that put that together, all women. We spent a lot of time on it and really did a lot of research. When I presented it to the client, they said, well, our content committee will have to approve this list. And I said, okay, who's the content committee? And they started naming the content committee, and the content committee was all men. And I said, but your audience is like 80% female, and we are females telling you that's what your audience wants to see, but it still had to be approved by a board of men. And that was something that's fine that men are speaking into that content for sure, but also let's have women on the board speaking into that content. And it felt almost like we'd been dismissed, and that was a hard thing. And that happens sometimes. And it's really just trying to find a way to fight for your space in the room while being still respectful and, not coming across as someone who's just fighting to have their voice loudest, but really, really impacting change and really saying, like, let's do this together. Let me help you understand how women are being portrayed in this, whatever this is they've made, and how we know this will be received. We talk a lot about with potential clients, like, we'd love to be brought in earlier. And some of our clients do this, and we've had a great success with it. But we'd love to be brought in earlier and be able to speak into your script and speak into how women are presented in your, in whatever it is you're making, because we know, if you're not women, or you don't have women in the room, you're not going to know. And that's not your fault. That's not something you're doing wrong. It's just let women in, and people like Cindy Bond are doing amazing work. And talk about a trailblazer.
Totally.
There are not many women in the space of making faith-based content. And she has been in it for so long and done such amazing work. And I can only imagine that was completely her idea. God gave her this idea. I'm sure she told you the story. She's driving down the road and God gave her the idea of, why not create a movie about this song and the impact it's had and where it came from. And, she's just such a trailblazer and such a fun person. And I love working with her, and I love, it's awesome to watch her work. She's a producer on I Can Only Imagine too. And she's just a great person, and she's been the only woman in the room for many, 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 many years. And I know that's really can get to a place where you feel discouraged or exhausted with it. And she's just kept on going. And I love that about her.
Well, she's amazing. And just, I think the word I'm hearing from what you're talking about for any woman listening is you've got to stand firm where you're called to be, whatever field that is. Maybe you're a lawyer, maybe you're a doctor, maybe you're a school teacher, but it's like wherever God's called you, don't be intimidated by if you're the only female in the room. He's put you there, and sure, there's going to be resistance, but keep going. And another gal who as well, who was the previous podcast, Sherry Rigby, love her vision as well about if we hire women directors, producers, the chances are 70% greater that you're going to have more opportunities for women in that film. And love the side that the male brings to the room and his gifts and everything. It's just both hearing both and the different perspectives. It's such a beautiful blend when both are listened to, because everyone sees things quite differently. So that is great. Yeah.
And I think, yes, she's wonderful. Sherry is wonderful. And she's been in this space for a really long time too. And I love seeing what she's doing with her own production company and her own efforts to, hire female writers and female directors and actors and producers and people that really, there's just something you bring your experience as a woman, and whether it's in film, if it's like you said, in banking, in, being a lawyer, being whatever it is you do, working in a grocery store, bringing that female experience is something that is so valuable, because regardless of whatever field you're in, you're working with women and you're speaking to women, and so just that female perspective that you bring to your work and to the leadership of those places. If God calls you into that leadership, to step into it, like go for it and own it, and know that He's placed you there with purpose.
So last question regarding the space of marketing and faith forward films. What would you say is your read on the climate out there right now for the big picture companies? Are they interested in faith forward films, open to them?
Oh, it's everywhere. Yes, everyone is trying to make faith forward content right now. Everyone, from the biggest studios to, independent filmmakers and distribution people, are looking for it. It's between the films that Kingdom Story Company has released, which I've been fortunate enough to be a big part of those, and Jesus Revolution and Best Christmas Pageant Ever and Unsung Hero. And those are just in the last 3 years, but those have made such a huge impact. And The Chosen and House of David and all the good work that these people are doing, that is incredible production quality, incredible storytelling. Dallas Jenkins and The Chosen have been doing this now for 5, 6 seasons. And they've really shown, they've just kind of created this amazing impact in Hollywood of saying, oh, wow, like this is legitimate. There's a legitimate audience that wants the content, that will show up at the box office, will show up, in their homes to stream these services and stream the shows. And it's so exciting to be part of it right now. And it's really kind of funny because there's so many people looking to do this that we've gotten several calls in the last year. Even we're a studio smaller. We got one call from a smaller studio, and they said, can you watch this film? And if we just remove the bad language, can we sell it to the faith-based audience? And I said, no, that's not how it works. But you're trying, everyone is trying to figure out how do we, but I think the audience has also grown savvier and smarter and has higher expectations for faith-based content, as they should.
Excellent.
And and so they are smart, and they know the difference between authenticity and opportunity. And so it is the things that Kingdom Story Company is making, and Dallas is making, and Wonder Project are making. That's authentic storytelling with a mission and a purpose. And I do think our audience is smart enough to sniff out the things that are just opportunity, someone looking to try to cash in on an audience. And so we talk about that a lot when we have a potential new client. Is the reason you should hire us is because we don't just know the audience. We are the audience. We are all people who have grown up in church. Our faith is an important part of our life and our community. And we speak this language because it is our language, not because we've gone and learned an audience and we know how to sell to them. This is where we live. This is who we are. And so it's been really fun to be in that space of explaining that to, and even trying to explain to studios, like it's so nuanced. Like you may need to speak to the Catholic audience slightly differently than you speak to the Southern Baptist audience, than you speak to the Protestant or the mainline denominations. And they're like, wait a minute, what? Okay. So, it's not a one size fits all.
Right.
And that is sometimes they're like, okay, I don't get it, but okay, you tell us what we need to do here. And that's kind of fun to be in that spot,
Yes. Well, I have heard that from others, and it totally goes along with what you're saying, that these studios are open right now to the idea of faith forward films. And one of the sponsors to this podcast is the National Christian Foundation of California, which operates a donor advised fund. And then you can use those funds and grant to over 90,000 charities and organizations. Out of the National Christian Foundation came Impact Foundation, and that allows you to take those same charitable dollars, but invest them. And you can invest them in films like I Can Only Imagine, or I Can Only Imagine 2. And that's super exciting for me as well, because when you think about the amount of resources that are sitting in donor advised funds or private foundations, and private foundations have to pay out a minimum of 5% a year, there's just a large chunk of capital sitting there to the tune of like $1.5 trillion. And knowing that, I know that you can use those dollars and invest them in a film like House of David, and then that money comes back into your donor advised fund, and any interest returns also go there. And it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving, because you can then invest in another film. And so people enjoy doing both. They love the partnership between the National Christian Foundation and Impact Foundation. And I think I have a lot of many conversations with like Hollywood directors, producers who have the rights to an incredible piece of work, a book, and they want to put it in a movie, and they need to raise $8 million. And they've been used to going after that private capital. But then when they learn, wow, this money has already been given, it's available to be invested in their film if they can find the right donor investor. It's really, really exciting. So I love the work that you're doing.
Thanks. I would say there's never been a better time to try to make faith-based content, because you've got distributors who are looking for that type of content. You have investors who want to invest in that type of content. And then you have studios that understand the value of this type of content, and they bring world-class creative and access to talent. And it's all those boats kind of rising with the tide together that have made this a time when the content and the quality of the work and the storytelling is better than it's ever been. And there's just, it's really kind of cool. I mean, it's amazing to think, okay, God is like, well, this is what we're going to do with this. We're going to keep growing, and I'm going to keep giving you more and more access and more opportunity and more funds to make it and better storytelling to reach more and more people. And that's just really a cool thing to realize you get to be part of in some small way. I mean, we're just a small, tiny piece of this huge ecosystem, but to get to be a tiny piece of it is just really exciting and really fun.
And what tech allows us to do today with the millions of views in a nanosecond compared to how it used to be with shipping the film on a VHS overseas.
That's right.
It's amazing. It's a super exciting time. Well, I've loved our conversation, and I want to make sure that you have time to share favorite Bible verse, book that you're reading, bargain.
Yeah. So favorite Bible verse is Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. My name will be exalted among nations. My name will be exalted in the earth. That to me has just been for sure been a life verse. And I think it's such a great reminder to slow down, just be still and trust that God's in control of it. And I mean, So that is one I try to remember often. I don't want to sound pious. Like I wish I were repeating that verse in my head more often than I do. But when I really stop and think about it, like that's the one that I think helps me feel the most grounded and safe. And then, Bible verse. What was the other
book that you're reading? Current book that you're favorite book or current book?
Yeah, so I finished. This has been a couple months ago, but I can't stop thinking about it. Is Ariel Lohan's book, The Frozen River? It was incredible. It's historical fiction. I read it in a couple of days. I have another. I was at a soccer game, my son's soccer game, and I mentioned it, and another woman said, "Are you talking about The Frozen River?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "I read it in 24 hours. Like I couldn't put it down." It's really great, and she lives here in Franklin. That also does. So that's an incredible book, The Frozen River, if you like historical fiction.
Yeah.
And then Bargain, I just discovered, so I love anthropology, and I just discovered that they have a rental line called Newly, N-U-U-L-Y, and it's all clothes from anthropology. I knew about the rental line, but what I didn't know is that they sell those clothes that have been rented on Newly at an incredible discounted rate. So I just got a dress that came this weekend. Originally it was like $258, and I think I got it for $20 because it was one of the Newly, it had been in the rental cycle, but the downside is it's final sale. If you buy it, it's final sale. Sure. So, you're taking a risk. You might buy it and not like it. But this one worked. I loved it. And I was like, I cannot believe I got this dress for $20.
That's a
so if you go to Anthropology, I know if you go to their online sale page, they will have some things there that were previously in the Newly rotation. And obviously, people have worn it besides you, but it's been professionally cleaned and they don't sell anything that's been damaged. So yeah,
I love
that was super fun.
I learned something new. One of my daughters uses Newly for the subscription service, but did not know that you could buy the dress for $20. So love that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that was great. Great find. Yeah.
Well, it's been such a joy to have you on the podcast, and thanks for sharing about your career journey, your personal journey, your vision for the future for these films, and the role that women play and the influence. And I can't think of a better guest to fill this space as we talk about marketing toward So thank marketing to women.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I look forward to staying connected with you. Thank you for having me.
Me too. Thanks so much. God bless. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Generous Girl podcast. We're so glad that you're here. And if you know of someone that you think needs to be a guest on this podcast, please reach out to us. New episodes are released every other week, and you can follow us on YouTube and on all platforms. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.